when you start off with this, it's our seventh spring practice, and as you go into this, really the goals have remained pretty consistent throughout. Want to be Big Ten champions, want to be a consistent winner in everything that we're trying to do, go to the Rose Bowl, win in this state. Going into our seventh year, I think that we've been able to accomplish some of those things, been Big Ten champs, Legends champs, 6 straight bowl games. We won the last 2, which I think is very important to recognize. 3 out of the last 5 years, we've been in the top 20 or 25, end of the year type situation. So, but like all teams and organizations or companies or whatever we have here, the process continues. And before I really get involved in anything, I just want to publicly thank all of our players. The current and former players have really made this happen the last 6 years. They've done a tremendous amount of work, and I want to recognize those people. But as tomorrow begins, we continue preparation for our next phase of this 2013 season. Foundation has been set. I definitely feel that's in place. Expectations have continued to be raised around here, which they should. And really, it's now a time, I believe, to sort of fulfill our dreams as we move forward here with this next class. We have 40 players returning with extensive playing experience. I believe here 16 offensively, 15 defensively, 3 specialists. We've got 17 redshirted freshmen who haven't played a snap yet for us. 99 active players, or 90 active players out for the spring. I guess 90 is the number. 69 scholarship players. So got quite a few players out there competing, and it should be an exciting opportunity for a lot of different people as we move forward here. Winter workouts, when you really critique winter workouts and characterize what's gone on there, we've had 11 of those. 7 of them have been 5:30 a.m. Straight up, nobody missed. So it's been outstanding in that capacity. 4 afternoon practices, or not practices, but workouts. But we tried to focus on working hard, rehab, critiquing what we've done in the past in terms of off the field, whether it's particularly with our coaches, but just trying to sort of regather information and restructure things as we move forward. The next phase begins now as spring practice, and that's really our second phase of preparation as we look at 2013. The focus will be, again, on technique, fundamentals, gaining experience for some of our guys, especially at various positions. We got to change some things up in terms of what we do and the way we do things as usual. Experiment, got to execute better. Find our best 11, 12, 13 players, and then our next best. Work on some penalties type things, so we continue to harp on those things, not beat ourselves. Have to compete, and then obviously, just based on last year, we've got to find the inches. And I think that's very important that we be able to do that. Goal always is to get 3% better as we go. And I think if we do that individually as well as a team, we're going to get better and better as spring progresses. And really, just in closing this, and then I'll let you go with questions, but I remember Kirk Cousins talking with me one time in 2009, preparing for the 2009 season, and he was in a quarterback battle, and he felt like he had just climbed up a mountain, and then there was another peak there. And I think that's the way we are as a football team. I think that's the way it's always going to be. We've climbed some mountains here. Last year, after a Big Ten championship, and Legends champion, we got up there and we thought we had arrived, but I think we found that there were bigger mountains and a whole range of them from which we still have to go. I think you can never forget where we've come from, who we are, and most importantly, how difficult it was to get there and how difficult it is to stay there. And if we do those things, I think great things can happen for us, but we have to take things one thing at a time. So I'll take some questions and we'll go from there. Hondo.
Two-part, Coach. First of all, obviously last year special teams at times was concerning. Do you plan on making some changes schematically on those areas of the balls? And then second one, I know before, like you've sent coaches to Nebraska to look at some of their defense. Did you send any coaches out this year, offensively or defense, and where to?
Well, we did go to LSU this year as a defensive staff, and I think that was beneficial. From an offensive perspective, we're a little bit behind in terms of because we restructured the staff a little bit, so we felt like we were best suited just to remain in place, and we'll go to a place after spring ball and look to do some of those things as we get into June or into May during a week off, where we'll take a little bit of time between recruiting. So I think it's beneficial when you do those things. We're not trying to, reinvent the wheel. I think it does focus on, football focuses on the fundamentals and who really blocks, tackles, and plays the ball in the deep part of the field and, catches the football and throws it correctly and all those different type of things. That's going to be the team that wins usually. So the focus will always be on fundamentals, but we do need to change some things. In regards to special teams, when you look at special teams, so much of it is the specialists themselves. Is it field goal block? Is it field goal? What is it? But we're always going to try and continue to be, very, very good in that area. I think we slipped a little bit in some areas, but we maintained in others. So it's a little bit, what do we do well? What do we have to change? But we're always looking to try and stay ahead of the curve as best we can and as much as we can. But with that being said, we have to do what our players can do as well.
Mark, how much more important, if any, is this spring with a new not only a new offensive coordinator, but two offensive coordinators, and trying to sort all that out for the players and the staff?
Well, we have a starting point from where we've done what we've done the last 6 years. We do tweak things and change things, but so we have a starting point. The end point is obviously the most important factor. But every spring, I don't think there's a spring that goes by that's not important. I looked at the last 5 or 6, I guess, spring game formats and, calendars and installs and all the different things we've done. And I still come back to the same thing. Every spring is extremely important. It's very crucial. We've got some guys that are out rehabbing that won't go through spring, but at the other end of things, we've got some redshirt freshmen who haven't played as much. We've got some guys who are inexperienced coming up. Some other guys who were experienced, they need to take the next step and build on that experience. So every spring practice, I think, is crucial, I think, to the development of a football team. But I guess short answer to your question, I don't know if I'm answering it, but short answer to your question.
How the two new coordinators affect that? There's adjustments there for everybody.
Yeah, we've always tried to do things as a staff. So everybody's in on, regardless whether Tread was here or Roche was here. We wanted to make sure everybody was involved and positive in what we were doing. I think the key thing is, what do we change? What do we keep the same? How do our players grasp what we do change? How do we implement it? And are our players able to make that change? I think a lot of the things, when you lose 5 games by 13 points, a lot of the things are really just very minute things, minute details that we have to play better in the red zone. We kicked 33 field goals last year, attempted 33, and I think we made 22, I believe, John. So missing those 11 field goals, I think, are obviously an aspect that we've got to be a little bit better in. But maybe more importantly than that, we need to score touchdowns in the red zone, and so there's going to be an active part of that what we do. That has to be important. We have to gear things up to who our players are and how best to use those players. A lot of that is who's throwing and catching the ball the best, who's running with the football the best, and then we've got to take it all and throw it back up on the wall in the fall and insert freshmen in some of those places and see if they can make a dent. So, but like every spring, it's important.
Mark, I know you said every spring is important, but with as many open spots starting-wise on the offensive side of the football, how critical is this spring in terms of trying to evaluate your program, evaluate your roster, and improve players and see where things go?
Well, when you really look at our offense, we probably have more experience back this year than we did last year. We certainly have wide receivers back who've played in the game and have game experience. Last year we had virtually none. Last year we had virtually no tight ends back because Sims had missed a lot of the year before. So tight end still becomes a focus for us. I believe the F position is a focus for us. Obviously, quarterback is always going to be a focus just by the position itself. But our offensive line, it's just a matter of where to play the people. We've got experienced players back. They have to take the next step. Whether you're a wide out, quarterback, whatever position, even at tight end, we've got experienced players back. They have to take the next step and solidify their position as to who they are, what level they are, first team, second team, and then how they play.
Mark, how will you approach your three quarterbacks this spring, and how is it different from a year ago when I think Andrew was more presumed the starter? Is he still that, or what?
Yeah, we had two quarterbacks last year, and we lost Andrew midway through, so we had one quarterback really, and as you remember, spring game was a little bit different. Never had a spring game like that where one guy quarterbacks the whole way. But you've got Tyler O'Connor, who starts as a redshirt freshman with us, and I think he'll be very exciting. So it's very important that he have opportunities to move forward, I think, as a quarterback. I think it's very, very important that he work with the ones at the twos, that he has that opportunity. Obviously, Connor Cook and Maxwell are two guys that have played some. Maxwell far more than Connor, but Connor played in the bowl game and I thought did some good things. So you have to weigh those things out. Those guys are going to have equal opportunities, I think, but Maxwell starts with the ones. I think he deserves that based on his leadership, based on him having to take all the bullets that are thrown at him from the press and from everybody else involved. And because there is a certain part of being a leader or being the quarterback that you have to be able to absorb those hits. And I'm not talking about the hits from the players. I'm talking about the hits from the general public and the criticism that's leveled towards him in every respect. I think that goes with the territory. I mean, it's not unwarranted. It just goes with the territory. And I think by nature of what he's been able to do in that respect, he stands at number one. But with that being said, we're evaluating our quarterbacks. They will be live this year in scrimmage situations, and we're going to give people an opportunity to create. And I think that's very important and critical for this football team, that our quarterbacks be able to create at a high level.
Mark, I know spring you always switch guys, and sometimes it's more experimental. A couple I was wondering about is France, do you think, moving inside in all likelihood? And I know Allen's out, maybe that's part of that. And then Jairus Jones at linebacker, is that maybe more of a permanent thing or experimental?
Yeah, France will move inside right now because Jack Allen is out for the spring with shoulder rehab. And, we want to make sure that Fonote and Skylar Berkland are both working at the number ones. I think that gives us an added abilities. Dan France knows tackle. He can play at guard. He can have a learning curve there. Can also work Fonote at center a little bit, and that will happen as well. So we're gonna have some mix and matching there. Donovan Clark was at left tackle before. He goes to left guard. I think that's a positive. He started for us the Michigan game last year, if you guys recall, did an outstanding job. I think Mike Dennis has played a lot for us in sort of the second half of the season, and I think that's a positive. So we've got 7 guys this spring that have game experience, and certainly we'll have 8 when Jack Allen returns in fall.
Mark, excuse me. Le'Veon represented about 40% of your offensive production. How do you deal with that number? I mean, it seems like a really big number. How do you manage that and atone for that going forward?
Well, it's tough. There's no question about that. And you look at last year when we had, I think it was 95% of our offense, our pass offense gone with Cousins and their wide receivers and our tight ends. And so that's difficult to gauge. But with that being said, Nick Hill's got, this is his 3rd year coming into this, being in the offense, and it's time for him to shine. Jeremy Langford, it can be said to be the same thing. Both those guys are very explosive. Nick Tompkins has an opportunity. He's a redshirt freshman, and then we'll bring 3 talented freshmen in the fall. And we've always played freshmen. So with that being said, as I stand here and I look, and I've heard this be said to me, our last 3 tailbacks, our feature tailbacks, whether it's Javon Ringer, really the last 4 or 5, Javon Ringer, Edwin Baker, Bell, Kalkrick, Larry Caper, they've all been very good. And all of them have had the opportunity or will have the opportunity to play at the next level.
Mark, I'm curious, if I'm not mistaken, no freshmen are enrolled early, correct? And then
No freshmen are enrolled.
with that running back position seeming to be fairly wide open and guys coming in that I think are going to have a shot, is it a little bit different to evaluate in the spring and when you don't have all the guys there really?
Well, I think it's going to be easier to evaluate because you're going to get the touches and the reps. So, they're going to be able to carry the football and not have to split reps 6 ways. They can split it 3 ways. And I think that provides opportunities, and you're going to get a good feel for exactly who is in the mix and then who carries it forward to the fall. And then when fall camp comes, I think what you'll see is these other guys getting some touches and seeing how they react and, move forward from there. Yeah, Joe.
Oh, Mark, what's the status of some of the guys who aren't on the roster? Tyquan Hammock, Nate Clatton, Jamari Mills, I believe.
Status of Tyquan is he's decided to graduate and has an opportunity to get for an internship this spring. So he came to me shortly after the bowl game and sort of wanted to go in that direction. So that was his decision. He was able to do that, and he wanted to move on with his. We certainly wanted Tyquan back. I think he's a very good football player, but it just felt like it was time. And Jamari Mills has stepped away to deal with academic issues that he has right now. And Nate Klatt is DQ'd medically because of concussions. He's had 3 or 4. And so it's time for him to. But Nate continues to work in our football building, and he'll work in recruiting, and he'll do a tremendous job.
Mark, I think it's safe to say that having the 2 cornerbacks you've had over the past 2 or 3 years have been a big reason for your success on that side of the ball. Just how critical does it become to replace Johnny Adams, and does it help? It's not help wouldn't be the right term, but are you going to get a good look at a lot of guys with Denard out this spring?
Yeah, first of all, Daquez will probably be able to participate towards the latter end of spring, probably maybe the last 2 weeks. That's what we're hoping for. Obviously a great football player, and as you said, very important to our defense. Johnny Adams, we have an opportunity to go to the next level. I think it's important that, Johnny graduated, and I think it's important that everybody recognize that fact. He graduated in January, and he has a chance to do it right and move to the next step. As far as our young defensive backs, probably the most impressive group that we brought in since we've been here. You've got Ezra Robinson, is very explosive, extremely fast, one of the faster guys on the team, very good ball skills. Mark Myers, a hitter, great football player. Demetrius Cox would have been playing throughout the second half of the season, but we decided, just tried to hang on and redshirt him. But he's going to be in the thick of it, and he's an outstanding football player, and he's going to show up in really all respects. And then Jermaine Edmondson's another guy that can really run, ball skills, and been very, very impressive throughout fall camp. So those 4 guys are going to be in the mix, and they all can play. It's important. Jermaine's slowed a little bit by shoulder surgery a little bit, so he'll make it back a little bit probably live in the next 2 weeks. But those other guys will be ready to go, and they're very good football players. They're active, and you saw them make a lot of plays throughout the fall. So it's going to be exciting to watch them. I think you got Arjun. Calhoun will be playing, so he'll be another guy that is extreme. He's continued to move forward.
Mark, in your scheme, the tight end and the fullback are extensions of the offensive line. Last year, it's safe to say those areas struggled a bit in helping your running game. How is that maybe the biggest thing you're trying to get work done on is tight end and fullback in this spring?
Yeah, tight end is a position that, we can play so many of them, so it's an important position right now. Gleichert, Paul Lang, we have 2 young players, Evan Jones and Josiah Price. They're very important in the whole, the whole deal there. But I think all 4 of those guys are going to have an opportunity to play. Price reminds me a lot of Brian Lithicum in the way he catches the football at times. And, both these guys are redshirt freshmen, Evan Jones and Price, and I think they're going to do some great things. Evan Jones is a very good football player. And then you've got Paul Lang, who came off an injury last year, and he's basically like a redshirt freshman because he missed all of spring. So he's got to get back to where he was when we recruited him, who was a very active player. And then Gleichert, needs to play better at the point of attack, but he's a great ball catcher down the field. Fullback, Palzetti, Pendleton. Pendleton played a lot for us last year. Palzetti as well. Pelzetti is coming off an injury a little bit, so we've got to see how he responds. We've moved Tyler Hamilton into that position, and LT can always move back and forth. LT Thomas from the defensive line position to the fullback position, and he approaches 285 right now on a good day, on a light day actually. He can move in and out of that position, and we're going to find our best guys. I think it's important that we look and say, who are our best football players? We get them in the positions to play, and that's what we've always done here. So if there's a position move that has to be made some point during spring to help certain areas that need the help, then that's what we do. Jarius Jones goes to star by nature of an injury. He can play safety. He's played safety for 4 years. We want to teach him how to play the outside backer position with as many one-back sets as we see, et cetera. And he's been a good football player for us, so he'll have that opportunity.
You'd mentioned the live quarterbacks. 2 questions here. One, with the experience you've got on the offensive line, will there be more scrimmages than what you've done in past years? And 2, in splitting the quarterback reps, when you say they'll get the same action, will they get to split reps with the ones?
First question is, we're only allowed to have 3 full scrimmages by NCAA mandate. The other ones are sort of that you can tackle, I think, 50% of the time. So while, for example, next Friday we'll go in pads this coming Friday. It'll be padded practice. We'll go some live things, but it won't be a total scrimmage. So we'll be able to pick and choose when we want these guys to be live, but I think they have to be by nature of what we need to find out. And the only way you can find out is by giving them those opportunities. As far as who's working with the number ones, we're gonna change up some of that as we go. I think everybody should have that opportunity to work behind a great offensive line or work against them. In particular, they need to all work against the number 1 defense to see how, to evaluate apples versus apples, basically.
Mark, you've done a lot of different things with running backs since you've been here, splitting carries with Colquitt and Ringer, splitting them with Baker and Bell, and then also having feature backs like Bell that just sort of handle the load. Do you have a preference between the 2 styles? And I guess, can you talk a little bit about what the pros and cons are of having one guy carrying it all and then another guy that's, splitting it with him?
Well, I think if you have 2 different styles of running backs, that they can complement each other, and that's, to me, the best way to go about it, because if you get one guy dinged, then you have another guy. But sometimes, it doesn't always work out like that. And so I've always said, hey, feed the horse that's moving it. Always just said, go with the guy who's hot. And that's changed periodically even throughout a season, not just year to year, but through a season. But I think that all those guys that I mentioned earlier, they've all been featured backs at one point in time. I mean, Larry Capers was actually a featured back in 2009. He was the guy. And then it just sort of changes as it goes. And, it's not to say one guy plays worse than the other. We just try and always just ask our players to compete, and who's ever playing the best, we try and put it out there. So, and I would say that's the same at almost every position, at every position. I think we've done that and proven that fact. I don't care who the players are. I care how they play. And it's important that they have take a leadership role as they do it. Whether you're number 1 right tackle or you're the number 1 quarterback, there's value in leadership in both those areas.
Mark, you referenced the close losses from last year and trying to make up those inches. What do you do during spring practice that could maybe help you carry those things over into the fall when it's necessary late in the game in order to make that play?
I think the most important thing is we got to gain confidence from our experiences. Both our successes and our failures, you need to bank those, and then take those experiences and make them positive ones. The fact that you don't have success in front of 100,000 people in a national audience, that should count for something, and that's what we're banking on. Beyond that, what we do in practice is try and simulate those situations, but it's very, very difficult to do that unless you're competing for the position, knowing that if you don't perform, you go down the depth chart, which I think those type of things will happen. Obviously, the spring game, when you put a lot of people in the stand, provides another opportunity for those guys to do those things. But until you get to game time, third and sixth, tie a game or down by 2, whatever, you got to make the play one way or the other on the defensive side of the ball or the offensive side of the ball. It's a little bit of an unknown. But once you start making those plays, I think there's a great deal of confidence that comes with it. And I think a lot of our players have had the opportunity. We won some close games as well. So I'd like to put a little gap in there. But, it is what it is sometimes. It's a very competitive league, and everybody's working extremely hard. I don't care whether you're here or down the road or someplace else.
Sneak a couple in real quick. Are Foe and Jackson fully all healthy and ready to go? And then at receiver, you mentioned that a lot of guys back. Medeiros, a guy who's kind of high on the depth chart. What do you look for from him this spring?
As far as offensive line, Foe and Travis are back. They've worked out. I'm sure that we'll take it easy with them initially, but they're both back, and I would call them 100%. As far as Monty, Medeiros had a slow start last year because of a long ankle sprain, but I think he did an outstanding job the rest of the fall. So I think he's a guy that is going to be in the mix. He's a guy that catches the ball clean. He can get vertical. He's a highly recruited guy. He can run. He's big. But he's got to learn conceptually to be at the same level as those other guys, and then he's lacking the game experience, like we'd said.
Coach, we asked you about the incoming freshmen on signing day. I guess this is along the same lines. Evaluate this redshirt freshman class as they come into, it appears, press at a lot of different positions. Is this about as deep a redshirt freshman class as you've had?
Our classes have been different in a couple different ways. Last year's redshirt freshman class, the previous year, was very heavy in the defensive line and the linebacker group. This year, it's heavier in the defensive backs, probably the wide receivers. We did play Kings, McGarrett Kings. We did not play Medeiros. We did play Burbage. It's important that Arnett take a big step forward. I think he's a guy that could be considered a freshman pretty much last year as well, just being in a new environment and things that he was going through. So those guys are interesting to watch. Tyler O'Connor is very interesting. Offensive line, we have experienced offensive linemen back, but those individuals like Conklin and McGowan and Higgins will make a push in there to see where they are at. From a defensive line standpoint, Fennell is a guy that has got to get moving here, see where he's at. But we really didn't bring in a lot of defensive linemen. I think Jamal Lyles and Riley Bullard are two guys that are going to see the field a lot. You're going to see them show up on special teams during the season. They were both very active in the fall, and I think they're two very, very good football players. So it'll be exciting to watch those guys, and I think I hit about all of them very quickly. But it was an impressive group, especially at the skill level.
Mark, since it's spring and apparently injuries aren't an issue this time of year.
Not yet.
I may be way out of the loop, but if the guys listed at the bottom, I know you mentioned Jack Allen as a shoulder, but when it's Denikos and Ed Davis and Denard, are there what their injuries are?
Yeah, they're just they're coming off of. Not really going to talk about injuries, other than to say they're coming off surgeries from after the season surgeries. So while they're able to do certain things, they can't do live things.
Those guys will be Denard or playback, but Allen's out and Davis out.
Out for the spring.
So Denard's the one guy of those four who may play.
One guy, the four, yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know.
Can you please talk about Ron Burton and Coach Bowman? What has been their immediate impact? Obviously, you haven't hit the field, but talking to the players, they seem extremely excited. Can you just give us your oversight with how you've seen them make an immediate impact?
Yeah, winter workouts. When you talk about the different things we've gone through, and you talked about the critiquing and the rehabbing and the conditioning getting bigger and stronger, and then you've got new coaches coming in too. I think Coach Burton has been tremendous out on the field when I've watched him. Very active with his players, great drills that simulate a lot of the things a defensive lineman would do without stepping over the line, in terms of, but a lot of good footwork drills and things of that nature that simulate things that they would have to do. But he's been very on task, I think, not just in working with their players, but with the recruiting aspects, et cetera, that go on. So I've been very, very impressed. And then Jim Bowman is probably 2 weeks behind him. And, he's with the offense and with our tight ends, and they've not done as much on the field because we had a week off. So he's just been here a week with our players. But you can look for great things from him. He's a very, very good football coach, and I think he's brought some new ideas and implemented some things already.
A couple of comments. I know you can't speak directly on recruits, but when you hear from people about Coach Burton and the relationships, able to build relationships, seems like he really has a gift in that area. I realize it's early, but talking to almost everyone, is that maybe a gift that he has, Mark?
Yeah, I think so. He communicates very, very well, and anytime you can communicate, usually you're going to be a great recruiter. I think, as I said, he's on task. He's extremely organized. He knows where he's going, and he's going to get there. I don't care whether it's on the field with his defensive linemen, whether it's in the staff room, or whether it's in recruiting. He's got a master plan, and I think that's important. So he's been very, very impressive. When I've traveled to a clinic to do in Charlotte, a Nike clinic, and I went with him, you know, he was very active and knew exactly which coaches were going to be at that clinic that had players that were already offered by BCS teams. So it was impressive. So. All good, guys? Thank you very much. Go Green. Just before I leave, though, I want to wish our basketball teams all the best this week in the tournament. And, you know, as always, it's exciting to watch both men's and women's and where they go. Exciting time of the year. And as I've said many times to our football team, you look across Munn Field, you look through the basketball facility, and you watch the intensity that they practice with and the way they go about things, and they win down the stretch a lot. That's what we have to do. We have to win down the stretch. We have to go at it. Now, it doesn't mean you're always going to win, but you got to go at it. You can't hang back down the stretch. And I see that yearly from our basketball team, especially our men's, because I probably watch it more often. But it's always very, very impressive, and I want to wish them all the best. Thanks.